Hikaru, having overcome his fear, quickly moved up to the first group among the student players. Although ranked 25th, which wasn't enough, his next opponents included Waya and his friends. The thinking time in Group 1 was longer, and the gameplay was more deliberate. Previously, Hikaru might have struggled with indecision, but under Fujiwara no Sai's guidance, he had learned to convert his fear into aggression. He still occasionally made mistakes, but fortunately, his opponents didn't notice them. Hikaru won his first match in Group 1. His second opponent was Waya's friend Fukui, a fast player. The game was enjoyable, and Hikaru narrowly won by half a point. He felt he might be suited to rapid games. With some time left, they started another round, finding joy in playing Go. Fukui often beat Waya, and their game was filled with banter and chat, attracting Waya as a spectator. Waya was surprised to hear that Hikaru had won. Hikaru was delighted with his consecutive 2 wins, but next week he would face Waya. Everyone was curious about Waya's playing style. Nowadays, Hikaru practiced daily with Fujiwara no Sai, usually getting thrashed on the board. The next day at school, Hikaru overheard Waya discussing online Go games. Waya mentioned that sometimes professionals played online, but there was a player stronger than any professional known as Sai. Hikaru, caught off guard, learned from Waya about Sai. Both he and Fujiwara no Sai felt uneasy, hearing that Waya and others were looking forward to Sai's return, oblivious to Sai's true identity. Waya mentioned he had even spoken to Sai, shocking Hikaru. He realized Waya was the student player he had encountered online and accidentally revealed Waya's online handle. Waya was baffled, wondering how Hikaru knew about his conversation with Sai. He started suspecting Hikaru might be Sai. Hikaru, feeling cornered, pretended he had seen Waya's conversation with Sai while passing by a computer in an internet cafe. Waya was surprised but accepted this explanation. Soon after, Waya lost a game to Hikaru, acknowledging his significant improvement and suggesting that Hikaru might catch up to Sai one day. Hikaru achieved 3 consecutive victories, including one against Waya, making his afternoon opponents somewhat fearful. Therefore, Hikaru secured 4 straight wins, thinking his life was reaching a peak. However, he then faced a series of losses, but fortunately managed to secure a spot in the top 16 of Group 1, qualifying him to participate in the Young Lions competition, where 16 professional players compete against 16 student players. Hikaru, having overcome his fears, quickly advanced to the first group of student players. The competition would last 3 days. In the first round, only 5 students won, and in the second round, only 3, including Isumi and Waya. Hikaru was eager to face Akira in the match. Meanwhile, Tsutsui and Kaga graduated and bid farewell to Hikaru, hoping to see him on the professional players list one day. Hikaru said goodbye and focused on preparing for his competitions. Achieving consecutive wins among the students was challenging, as everyone was striving to become a professional. During this time, Hikaru attended study sessions with Waya. Asuka, a fellow student player, thought it was good to relax sometimes, but Hikaru was not very interested in recreational activities. He occasionally wanted to return to the Go Club. Fujisaki and others were still playing, but Mitani had quit and was reluctant to return, making the Go Club feel somewhat deserted. Hikaru offered to play with them, suggesting a 1 versus 3 match. However, Fujisaki advised Hikaru to leave, fearing that Mitani might get upset seeing Hikaru still playing Go and might never return. Hikaru was initially upset by this, but quickly recovered, giving everyone a handicap in the game. Coincidentally, Mitani passed by the Go Club and heard the sounds of play and Fujisaki commenting on Hikaru's win. Hearing the door open, Fujisaki rushed out and found Mitani, explaining that Hikaru's visit was just a coincidence. Mitani claimed he held no grudges against Hikaru, although his tone was somewhat sarcastic, mentioning that they managed to get a student player as a coach. He said he was just there to pick up his chemistry notebook, even though he had no chemistry class that day. Fujisaki was annoyed, thinking Hikaru's presence had driven Mitani away permanently, worrying about how they would manage recruitment this year. Unexpectedly, a poster actually attracted a new student. Mitani's friend quickly approached the newcomer, inviting him to rejoin the Go Club so they could participate in a middle school Go competition together. Mitani refused. However, during a chemistry class that afternoon, Mitani couldn't resist opening the Go Club's cupboard, where he found the Go records, including his own notebook. Surprised, he blushed and put the notebook back. That afternoon, he returned to the Go Club. though he stubbornly said he would not participate in the Go competition, only practice with everyone. Fujisaki felt this was a good start, hoping to gradually influence him. At the same time, the third girl in the group also came to practice and had a match with Mitani. Both had strong personalities, leading to fiery duels, though they only competed on the Go board. The arrival of the girl led to frequent arguments between her and Mitani, which ironically made him a regular at the Go Club again. The Young Lions competition was about to start soon. Hikaru and Fujiwara no Sai eagerly arrived at the venue, looking forward to the day's matches. They noticed that other student players from the second group had also come to watch. For professional Go players, the Young Lions competition wasn't a significant event, so they dressed casually. Isumi had not passed the professional exam last year, while another player ranked below him, Mashiba, had become a professional. Mashiba even taunted Isumi, urging him to pass the professional assessment soon. He was also Isumi's opponent for the day, and his provocative attitude made him disliked by Waya and others. Hikaru was waiting for Akira to arrive at the venue. When Akira did show up, he walked past Hikaru without acknowledging him, drawing the attention of all the players there. It seemed Hikaru wasn't the only one eager to face Akira. Hikaru's opponent for this round was someone named Murakami. Waya noticed Hikaru's nerves and reassured him that no one expected a student player to beat a professional. Coincidentally, after taking their seats, Hikaru and Akira ended up sitting back to back. Journalists considered Akira the focus of this year's Young Lions competition because he had maintained a winning streak since the professional matches in April. Among the crowd, they spotted Ogata, assuming he was there to watch Akira. However, to their surprise, Ogata stopped by Hikaru. Journalists remembered Hikaru for his firm belief in Akira's victories in previous matches. Fujiwara no Sai, of course, knew that Ogata would be interested in Hikaru. After all, the two games Ogata had watched before were ones where Fujiwara no Sai had played under Hikaru's name. Fujiwara no Sai was eager for a challenge against Ogata, either as himself or as Honinbo Shusaku. With thousands of games in his mind, he longed to compete against every capable player, but being intangible, he could do nothing directly. Encountering Hikaru was a stroke of luck for Fujiwara no Sai, who aimed to nurture him. He believed Hikaru had great potential and would one day be a formidable opponent for everyone present. Just as Fujiwara no Sai was feeling proud, he noticed Ogata frowning at a bad move Hikaru made. In a panic, Fujiwara no Sai explained how he played daily with Hikaru, who was improving rapidly and broadening his perspective. Although Hikaru occasionally made mistakes, he still had room to grow. Just then, Ogata's expression changed from concern to surprise. Turning around, Fujiwara no Sai realized that the bad move was actually a trap Hikaru had set, luring his opponent into a mistake and turning the bad move into a good one. The opponent realized his error and quickly took off his jacket, ready to face Hikaru with full effort. Meanwhile, Fukui and Waya finished their games and rushed to watch Isumi and Mashiba's match, relieved to see Isumi dominating and causing Mashiba to sweat profusely. On another front, Akira's match ended, and other professionals felt he hadn't even shown half his strength. Simultaneously, Mashiba lost to Isumi, and people felt Mashiba was not at Isumi's level. Despite this, Mashiba mocked Isumi's skill, pointing out that he still hadn't passed the professional exam, even if he had one against him in last year's exam. This year, he claimed, would be no different. Angered, Waya punched Mashiba, turning the venue into chaos, but he could clearly hear the sounds of Hikaru's moves. Admit it, he already had a place in your heart. Akira eventually stood behind Hikaru, and Fujiwara no Sai smiled, wondering if Akira could detect anything from the game. Indeed, Akira was drawn to the board. After the commotion with Waya ended, he turned to check on Hikaru and found that Hikaru's game had already finished, and they were counting the stones. Waya noticed that Ogata and Akira were both near Hikaru and left after the game ended. Hikaru lost by 6.5 points. Although he had an inkling of a feeling, he couldn't play against Akira. Waya seriously told him that Akira had been watching his game. The next day, Akira approached Ogata. Ogata could tell that even though Akira had won his match, he wasn't happy. He had guessed what Akira was struggling with. Akira thought there was something wrong with Hikaru's game the day before, as he had only seen the end where Hikaru made a mistake and lost. This showed that Hikaru had been on even terms until then. Could it be that Hikaru's skills were comparable to a professional's? Akira noticed the sequence of Hikaru's moves was incorrect, and the flow of the game was odd. Ogata suggested they discuss it in the car and asked why Akira didn't confront Hikaru's opponent directly. Akira had tried, but that player seemed reluctant to discuss the match, telling Akira to focus on himself. In the second game, Akira crushed him completely. Just as Akira was about to ask about Hikaru, Ogata interrupted, teasing him for his supposed disinterest in Hikaru. Seeing Akira suddenly quiet, Ogata then praised the move Hikaru made, catching Akira's full attention. However, Ogata told him not to rush. The professional exam was in 2 months, and then Akira would see Hikaru's true level. Waya and others went to a restaurant for a meal. They talked about Asumi hiding in the restroom after losing a game. Hikaru mentioned that he had learned a lot from today's game and was determined to become stronger. Everyone felt his determination. As they left, Hikaru learned that the summer professional exam was starting soon, and they would all be competitors. Everyone returned to the Go Academy. An esteemed senior came down from the elevator, and everyone else bowed in greeting. Hikaru didn't recognize him, but the senior turned back as if he saw Fujiwara no Sai beside Hikaru. After being informed by others, Hikaru learned that this senior was Kuwabara, the current Honinbo, a title that originated from a superb player in the Showa era and continued as a prestigious title. Today's professionals compete for titles like Honinbo, Chess Saint, and Meijin, with Honinbo being the oldest. Ogata was currently challenging Kuwabara. All title matches require passing through 2 years of preliminaries, and the winner of these gets to challenge the title holder. Hikaru was completely unfamiliar with the professional Go scene and planned to learn more once he became a professional player. He played Go daily with Fujiwara no Sai, who also coached him during the games. The thought of playing in the same arena as Akira excited Hikaru greatly, and he eagerly anticipated the summer professional exam when he could compete on equal terms with Akira. Meanwhile, Kuwabara and Ogata met in Hokkaido, about to start their Honinbo battle. Kuwabara encountered fans, and Ogata won the first game. Kuwabara stated that his title was not easily won and vowed a strong comeback. However, Ogata reflected that the new generation of players might bring fresh challenges, but next time, he would be the one waiting for the newcomers. Both exchanged strong words. Back at the Go Academy, Hikaru learned that Akira had been promoted to 2 Dan. Waya's attention was also on Hikaru, who had significantly improved since the Young Lions competition. Suddenly, Waya received news that a well-known player named Kadawaki, who had won the student Honinbo and top 10 titles, was coming to take the professional exam. A formidable opponent indeed. Izumi and Waya took the arrival of Kadawaki seriously. Considering that only one student had passed the professional exam last year, they planned to be wary of him. Passing by, Kadawaki was irked that they did not recognize him, but soon bought a fan, planning to flaunt it after winning his matches. Just after buying the fan, Kadawaki encountered Hikaru on the stairs. Learning that Hikaru was a student player, he decided to use him as practice before the professional exam, claiming he just knew a bit about Go. Hikaru, thinking he was just a passing amateur, let Fujiwara no Sai play through him to satisfy his urge for a game. Poor Kadawaki didn't know what hit him. Fujiwara no Sai hadn't played against outsiders for a while and, combined with Hikaru's hurry, played ruthlessly, leaving Kadawaki sweating profusely. At the same time, Ogata and Kuwabara's best-of-7 Honinbo match continued. Ogata had won the first game, and it was Kuwabara's turn to make the final move of the day. They were now in their 7th game, proving Kuwabara was still formidable. Just as the referee was about to declare the end of the day's play, Kuwabara made his move, forcing Ogata to respond. After thinking for half an hour, Ogata asked for the game record, made his move, and sealed it for continuation the next day. After sealing the game, the record would be preserved until the next day. As Ogata was heading to the hotel, Kuwabara stopped him, noting it was likely Ogata's first time sealing a game. He reminded Ogata that the Honinbo title match was challenging and spanned 2 days. So far, Kuwabara had sealed all 6 previous games. He warned Ogata to be careful not to make a mistake on the game record, as nervous players had made errors before. This made Ogata uneasy, suspecting that Kuwabara was deliberately trying to unsettle him by suggesting such a possibility. Ogata understood Kuwabara's tactics, but had no choice. The old man was quite cunning. Kadawaki, full of confidence when he challenged Hikaru, was thoroughly defeated by Fujiwara no Sai playing under Hikaru's account, and had to admit defeat. During the game, Hikaru realized Kadawaki was quite skilled, which led Kadawaki to question if Hikaru was really just a student player. Frightened, Hikaru quickly packed up the game and fled. Kadawaki, puzzled, asked how long Hikaru had been playing Go. Hikaru, speaking for Fujiwara no Sai, cheekily replied, 1,000 years. After the game, Kadawaki called a friend, deciding not to attend the professional exam as he felt he needed another year of practice. Clearly, Fujiwara no Sai had overwhelmed him. The next day, the match between Kuwabara and Ogata continued. The referee announced the sealed move's position, and Ogata was relieved it was correct. Kuwabara, smiling, asked Ogata how well he had slept, clearly trying to play mind games. In the end, Ogata lost to Kuwabara, and the media commented that experience still counts. Hikaru learned from Waya that the top 8 students didn't need to participate in the preliminary rounds of the professional exam. Although Hikaru reached 7th place this month, it was too late as he needed to maintain a top 8 position for 3 consecutive months. Thus, Hikaru had to participate in a month-long preliminary tournament. Waya envied Hikaru's mindset, noting that most students saw each other as rivals since only 3 professional spots were available, making the preliminaries a tense affair. Soon, the first day of the professional preliminaries arrived. The professional exam was a month away, and the preliminaries Hikaru was participating in lasted 5 days. He just needed to play as usual. However, many others, including students from Go Academy and amateur players, were also participating, as anyone under 30 could join the amateur exam. So, when Hikaru entered the venue, he saw many unfamiliar adults. Among them was a bearded man with a loud voice, drawing sidelong glances from others. Feeling a bit intimidated, Hikaru quickly went inside to drop off his bag and greeted Fukui, who mentioned he had faced Akira last year. This reminded Hikaru that Akira, not being a student, also had to participate in the preliminaries. They were on the same path. The pairing was by draw, and Bearded Man seemed relaxed, making others at the venue particularly nervous. Hikaru was surprised to draw Bearded Man as his opponent. Asuka, a fellow student, sympathized with him. Each player had 2 hours. Just after Hikaru made his first move, Bearded Man suddenly stood up and left, returning over half an hour later. Though the game resumed, Hikaru was visibly unsettled. Worrying about upsetting Bearded Man, Hikaru was distracted until they were called for a break. Bearded Man then took Hikaru out for lunch, earning the sympathy of the other students. Bearded Man offered to treat Hikaru, who was curious about where he had gone for that half hour. Bearded Man explained he was nervous and had gone out for a drive, sensing the tense atmosphere around Hikaru. He advised Hikaru that everyone uses their time differently, and even suggested that Hikaru could use the lunch break to think about his next move. Hikaru was astonished, having never encountered such tactics before. Fujiwara no Sai sighed, realizing that Hikaru had already lost the psychological battle before the game had even started. As expected, Hikaru lost to Bearded Man by 4.5 points. Although losing one match in the preliminaries wasn't a big deal, it still affected his mood. Asuka told Hikaru not to worry about it and to rest properly during lunch, reminding him that they weren't professionals and didn't have to deal with sealed moves. Hikaru only then learned about the concept of sealing a move, typical in 2-day title matches where the last move of the first day isn't made on the board, but is recorded and sealed until the game resumes the next day. This ensures fairness, since neither player knows the other's next move. 2-day events are usually for top players, and Bearded Man's departure was likely a tactic to unsettle Hikaru. Asuka urged Hikaru to stay calm, while another student noted Hikaru's lack of experience. Despite his talent, Hikaru had only been playing Go for just over a year and hadn't competed against adults, which made him prone to mistakes. Hikaru returned home to find out that his mother needed him to house-sit the next day. Hikaru informed her of his professional exam, surprising her as she was unaware of his ambitions. She wasn't opposed to his aspirations, but was concerned about his poor academic performance, advising him to focus on his studies before pursuing hobbies. Hikaru retorted that once he became a professional player, his studies wouldn't matter. His mother was stunned. The next day, Hikaru went to the Go Academy, hoping not to see Bearded Man, but there he was again. All the students noticed that Hikaru was too nervous around adults. and his fear of Bearded Man's every move was not conducive to performing well in exams. Fujiwara no Sai noticed Hikaru's lack of composure, leading to increasingly hasty play. During the lunch break, the judge announced a pause, and Bearded Man came over to invite Hikaru for lunch. Hikaru, fearing further nervousness, claimed he had already bought a lunchbox and left quickly, hardly able to eat. The students were worried about him. A second consecutive loss would complicate his chances in the preliminaries. Unless Hikaru won all his remaining games, he might not advance. Fujiwara no Sai tried to comfort him, but Hikaru wasn't receptive. Indeed, Hikaru lost his afternoon game, leaving him with no room for error. Thus, on the third day, he decided to arrive at the Go Academy just in time, hoping to avoid Bearded Man but nearly arrived too late. His opponent was Fukui, and Hikaru managed to calm down somewhat. Meanwhile, Hikaru's mother discussed her son's intense focus on Go with his grandfather. She feared he might not pass the exams, noting he seemed like a changed person. The grandfather was curious about Hikaru's sudden interest in becoming a professional. Hikaru's mother mentioned that Hikaru had been outperformed and scorned by a peer, motivating him to earn their respect. This was merely mentioned in passing. Hikaru still remembered the look in Akira's eyes when he wanted to challenge Fujiwara no Sai. He hoped that next time Akira would look him directly in the eyes. Seeing Hikaru's condition improve, Fujiwara no Sai finally breathed a sigh of relief, glad to see Hikaru regain his original spirit. Currently, both he and Fukui had 1 win and 2 losses. Hikaru planned to arrive at the same time tomorrow, but Fujiwara no Sai knew that if Hikaru didn't adjust his mindset, he might face another loss. Meanwhile, Waya and Isumi, who had competition experience, went to a Go salon to play against adults and gain experience. The salon owner recommended a Go hall known for skilled players. They also visited Go Academy to check on Hikaru's progress, expecting him to have secured 3 wins, but were surprised to find he had gone to the elimination rounds. Fortunately, Hikaru had some luck this time. His opponent was not very strong and also a young player. Hikaru won the elimination round, although Fujiwara no Sai was puzzled why Hikaru was so afraid of Bearded Man. Now, Hikaru and Fukui were at 2 wins and 2 losses each. Asuka also passed the elimination round, and they might face each other tomorrow, which was the last day of the preliminaries. Hikaru hoped to pass smoothly, so on the 5th day, he went to draw lots and luckily got a bye, advancing directly. However, Fujiwara no Sai felt this was not ideal, as Hikaru needed more match experience. Hikaru mentioned he would undertake special training before the finals, but didn't specify the details to Fujiwara no Sai because there was a seminar by Morishita in the evening. Instead, Hikaru stayed to play Go with Fujiwara no Sai, and they were joined by Waya. Hearing about Hikaru's breakdown against Bearded Man, Waya decided to take Hikaru along to the Go Hall next time to help him build his courage. Asuka and Fukui also advanced through the elimination rounds. Soon, Isumi, Waya, and Hikaru went to the Go Hall for training. Waya thought that just playing 1 versus 1 was too boring, so upon arrival, he asked the owner to find 3 strong Go players for a team match. The owner and 2 other men stepped up, proposing that if the 3 students won, their game fees would be waived, but if they lost, they would have to clean all the Go stones in the hall. The 3 versus 3 team match drew attention from others in the hall. Hikaru felt nostalgic, recalling his time in the Go Club where he also played third. The owner initially thought the trio were just students from a Go Club, looking to challenge the strongest players, a bit overconfident and deserving a lesson. However, the trio won all their matches. Only then did everyone realize that Hikaru and his friends were serious student players. The regulars couldn't beat them and hoped their strongest player, Kawai, would help. But Kawai, who was actually a taxi driver with a passion for Go, hadn't arrived yet. When he did get to the hall, he found everyone gathered around. The trio had already started the second round and had given 2 stones as a handicap, but they still won. Waya then suggested giving a 3-stone handicap to further challenge Hikaru's courage. Kawai, hearing their confident talk, immediately took the 3rd position, ready to teach Hikaru a lesson. The owner believed Kawai was very skilled and doubted they could win with a 3-stone handicap. At that moment, Hikaru realized that standard moves wouldn't work since they were giving 3 stones, and he needed to find a way to win. It had been a long time since Kawai had played with a handicap. Hikaru suddenly made a move on the board that was innovative and had never appeared in other matches. Fujiwara no Sai felt this was a good opportunity for practice, as giving handicap stones wasn't just about giving a lead, but letting the opponent escape in a disadvantaged situation. These stones could turn the game around and tested the player's skills, requiring Hikaru to refine his strategy continuously to grow quickly. Despite the 3-stone handicap, Hikaru still won against Kawai and was praised by the older players. Only Waya lost under these conditions. Initially coming to the Go salon to overcome his shyness, Hikaru ended up getting hooked. He started going to the salon every week, where the owner welcomed him, waived his fees, and even selected opponents for him, allowing a maximum of 4 stones for handicaps and only against skilled players. Soon, Isumi suggested visiting a new Go salon, maintaining the previous bet, a team match with a 3-stone handicap, washing Go stones if they lost, and free salon fees if they won. When people heard they were student players, they readily agreed to the match conditions. In the end, the trio won again, making it awkward to talk about who would treat whom. Eventually, the elder Isumi stepped up, suggesting that since they had saved on salon fees, he would treat everyone. However, the generous offer nearly bankrupted him as the young players ate too much. Meanwhile, Hikaru was getting along well with the uncles at the Go salon, but Akira had to deal with the unwritten rules of the Go community. For instance, today he was replacing a professional player in a friendly Go match. The organizers, 2 professional players, reminded Akira that a sponsor who cared a lot about his image was also playing. He disliked receiving handicaps, but would be unhappy if he lost, so Akira was expected to subtly lose the game. Akira didn't refuse, understanding the importance of appeasing the sponsor. However, the sponsor did not respect Go. Initially interested in a female player, he looked down on Akira when he learned of the substitution. The sponsor carelessly placed his water glass on the wooden Go board, showing a lack of manners. As a professional facing 4 opponents, Akira saw another player place 3 stones. The sponsor decided he would only place 3 as well, boasting about his victories over professional players. Seeing Akira's stern face, the sponsor was displeased, remarking that Go also needed sponsor support and that Akira should learn to smile more. Unfortunately, as a young professional, Akira felt compelled to comply. At the same time, Hikaru was at the Go salon where the owner noticed he couldn't count points. He suggested that Hikaru learn to play without handicaps, which required stabilizing the situation by mid-game and constantly calculating both players' scores without slowing down or letting the opponent notice an intentional draw. Fujiwara no Sai thought this was a good learning approach and recommended Hikaru try it. After mastering it, he should try playing against 2 opponents. Meanwhile, Akira was playing against 4 people. After only 10 moves, he had assessed their levels. 2 were average, the sponsor was easily defeated, and only the purple hair man was a challenge. He felt no need to give him any advantage. Purple hair man suspected that Akira had heard the request to lose on purpose, and was curious about Akira's thoughts. Hikaru achieved a draw with his opponent. The owner told Hikaru that professional players know exactly how to play such games, so Hikaru started trying to play against 2 opponents simultaneously, which required him to calculate the scores of 2 games. Fujiwara no Sai suggested trying 1 versus 3, but Hikaru decided to progress gradually. Back at Akira's game, he continued to calculate the scores for all 4 opponents. Purple Hair Man noticed Akira was focusing on him, thinking Akira was not willing to lose to them, a group of politicians, and intended to win back against the sponsor. Unbeknownst to him, Akira had already figured out his endgame, and knew Purple Hair Man wouldn't give up easily. As he adjusted the games, Akira managed a draw with Purple Hair Man, who thought Akira would easily finish the others, but noticed sweat on Akira's forehead. Then, another player announced a draw, leading him to guess Akira's intention, yet found it unbelievable to achieve draws in all 4 games due to the massive amount of calculation required. When the sponsor also ended in a draw, and Purple Hair Man heard the same result, the 3 of them were stunned, turning to the last player who also reported a draw. They were amazed, having seen no signs of Akira throwing the games. Realizing the skill of a professional player from the 4 draws, their competitive spirit was dampened, though their surprise outweighed any anger. The senior players didn't scold Akira, but felt he shouldn't waste time on such matters. They mentioned that exhausting himself over 4 games was not worth it and advised him to relax more. noting no one was chasing him anymore. Akira, looking out the window, knew that might not be true, aware that Hikaru had passed the professional preliminaries. At the same time, Hikaru finished a 1-versus-4 session. Unfortunately, 3 games ended in draws, and he was 1 point short in the 4th. The owner was thrilled to see such rapid progress for the first time, and the regulars at the salon were willing to keep playing with Hikaru to help him improve quickly. At the same time, Waya learned that Hikaru had been training in Go for a month and could now draw in a 4-player match, although he miscounted by 1 point in 1 game. So, they decided to visit the Go salon reputed to have strong players. Hikaru was excited and went to buy a drink as soon as they arrived downstairs, where Isumi noticed the salon's sign was in Korean and frowned. While Hikaru was shopping in a convenience store, he finished paying and was about to leave when he saw a child rush in, knocking things over without picking them up. Hikaru called out to the child, but the child glared at him and walked away. Fujiwara no Sai felt there was something odd about the child. Annoyed, Hikaru left the convenience store and rushed upstairs, ready to lead the games, only to find that the salon was full of Koreans, including the child from the store. Hikaru then realized why the child hadn't responded. He probably didn't understand Japanese. Given that Korean players were strong at that time, it made sense why the previous salon owner had recommended this place. Learning that the child might not have understood Japanese, Hikaru apologized for his earlier behavior. The boy then snorted, saying he was finally seeing a child playing Go and had thought Japanese Go was doomed. The child, named Hong Soo-yeon, was the salon owner's nephew, just visiting Japan and aiming to become a professional Go player in Korea. When the others learned that Hikaru and his friends were student players, they gathered around curiously. Hikaru, puzzled, asked Waya if Korean Go was really that strong, which greatly displeased the Koreans around them. They remarked that Japanese Go was no longer dominant. Hong Soo-yeon commented that the new generation of Japanese players was too weak, prompting Hikaru to challenge him to a match. Meanwhile, a Go Society journalist had started paying attention to Hikaru, especially since previous competitors like Ogata and Akira had been watching him during the Young Lions competition. The situation in Japanese Go was not great, with consecutive losses in international matches against China and Korea. Fortunately, Koyo had managed to win a few matches under pressure, but overall, Japan's performance was disappointing. Without new talents, Go in Japan might decline, so the journalist was hopeful that Hikaru could become a professional player as outstanding as Akira. Hong Soo-yeon continued to mock Hikaru, offering to give him a teaching game. Hikaru refused, insisting on playing an even game. Waya found this interesting. Hong Soo-yeon, confident in his skills among the highly competitive Korean student players and ranking at the top, believed he couldn't lose to Hikaru. Other players quickly gathered around to watch. Isumi learned from the manager that Hong Soo-yeon was almost a professional player in Korea, but had recently faced setbacks. Previously, Hong Soo-yeon had been steadily advancing until a sudden failure stopped his progress, causing his ranking to drop. He had also failed a professional exam due to a mental breakdown. His family sent him to the salon manager to relax. The manager wasn't worried about his nephew's skills, but felt his mindset needed adjustment. Hong Soo-yeon had found playing Go dull and kept losing, compounded by whispers from those around him, leading him to consider quitting Go. During the game with Hikaru, Hong Soo-yeon realized that Hikaru's skills were indeed strong. He told himself that he couldn't afford to lose in such a place. He declared that if Hikaru won, he would remember his name. Hong Soo-yeon knew he had to adjust his attitude towards winning and losing to move forward. Hikaru responded confidently that he would make sure Hong Soo-yeon remembered his name. Just then, the coach from Akira's Aquaman Junior High School Go Club, who was also Korean, came over. Learning that Hikaru was now a student player, the coach was shocked as he had seen Hikaru play both brilliantly and terribly, once even causing Akira to lose his composure. He couldn't believe that in just a year and a half, Hikaru had improved enough to be considered a student player. Hong Soo-yeon was determined not to lose to Hikaru, and Hikaru didn't want to lose to the boastful Hong Soo-yeon either. The two fiercely competed on the board, each move carefully thought out. Fujiwara no Sai watched excitedly, knowing there could only be one winner. Hong Soo-yeon initially had the upper hand, but Hikaru played a move that seemed unexpected to everyone. Hong Soo-yeon thought Hikaru had made a mistake, Isumi and others watched nervously, but Fujiwara no Sai's smile deepened. When Hong Soo-yeon assumed Hikaru was mediocre, Fujiwara no Sai looked around and realized no one else understood Hikaru's strategy. Hikaru's skills had surpassed everyone there. As the game progressed, Hong Soo-yeon's eyes widened in realization that what he thought was a mistake was actually a brilliant move. By the time everyone else caught on, the board had changed, and Hikaru had gained a decisive advantage. Everyone was shocked. Had Hikaru anticipated this all along? Hong Soo-yeon continued to play, targeting another of Hikaru's stones, sweating with anxiety, yet steadying his emotions to keep playing. The tension was palpable among the spectators as the board filled with more stones. Eventually, both knew the game couldn't go on, and they began to tidy up the board. In the end, Hikaru won by 1.5 points. Deeply affected, Hong Soo-yeon was silent as others quickly comforted him. Both had given their best until the end, making it a spectacular game despite the loss. Hong Soo-yeon burst into tears, having never felt so unwilling to accept a defeat. Previously, he would often give up easily, but this time, spurred by their mutual challenges, he played seriously and still lost by only a slight margin. Determined, he vowed to become a professional Go player and returned to Japan for a rematch with Hikaru. He asked Hikaru for his name, and Hikaru straightforwardly gave it. As Hong Soo-yeon wiped away his tears, the manager was actually pleased. Though his nephew had lost, he had adjusted his mindset, stopped avoiding challenges, and was ready to move forward. The manager was confident that with such a change in attitude, Hong Soo-yeon would progress. Hong Soo-yeon was comforted by the crowd, reassured in his resolve to improve. Meanwhile, the coach from Aquaman Junior High School found Hikaru. Fujiwara no Sai remembered this man's identity. The coach mentioned he had watched Hikaru play 3 times. The first time he was amazed, the second time he was disappointed. Fujiwara no Sai smiled, confident the coach now had a high regard for Hikaru. Indeed, the coach expressed that he had witnessed Hikaru's progress in Go. Fujiwara no Sai was even more excited than Hikaru, asking if he had heard the praise. For Hikaru, it was thrilling to be complimented by someone who had seen Fujiwara no Sai's Go skills. The coach recalled the first time he saw Hikaru play, captivated by a brilliant game. Proudly, Fujiwara no Sai knew it was his own game. Now, the coach noted that today's game was just as impressive as that first one, confirming his belief that the spectacular game was indeed played by Hikaru. Fujiwara no Sai was surprised when the coach said he would remember Hikaru's name. Waya and others also praised Hikaru's performance today and informed him that the professional exam venue was at the Go Research Center. Hikaru, accompanied by Fujiwara no Sai, walked home. Along the way, Fujiwara no Sai was a bit distracted, while Hikaru was elated, pleased that a former competitor remembered his name. He aspired to make Akira remember him, not just Fujiwara no Sai. Hearing the word disappear, Fujiwara no Sai suddenly felt uneasy. Disappearance? Oh no, please let's not talk about disappearing, it's heartbreaking. On the day of the official professional exam, Hikaru's hands were trembling with nerves. He knew he had to become a professional player to catch up with Akira. Although he was nervous entering the venue, seeing other student players relaxed him. He encountered Bearded Man again, who greeted him. After a month of playing with other adults like Kawai, who was even more intimidating than Bearded Man, Hikaru had gotten used to it and could even talk back. Other student players participating in the preliminaries were surprised at Hikaru's transformation. He was no longer afraid of Bearded Man, but appeared even more composed. He then headed to the Go room to await the start of the match. Unlike the preliminaries, the official exam was held on Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, spanning 2 months in a round-robin format. 28 players competed, and only the top 3 performers would qualify. Although Hikaru faced some previous opponents, this time he trembled not from nerves, but from anticipation of the upcoming matches. His confidence was restored during the intense game against Hong Soo-yeon. At that moment, Hikaru ran into Ijima, another student player. Ijima commented on Hikaru's lucky advancement, but Hikaru, unaffected by such mental games, responded that luck or not, he had progressed just like everyone else. The drawing of lots began, and Hikaru's first opponent turned out to be Ijima. Everyone took their seats, and the game started. Within the first 5 minutes, someone left the playing area to calm down due to nerves. Professional exams were serious business, requiring good mental preparation, as only 3 out of the 28 players would become professional Go players. When Ijima saw how composed Hikaru was, His desire not to lose made him even more impatient. During the break, he found that Hikaru and Bearded Man had almost become friends. Hearing from Isumi that Hikaru had been training in a Go salon, which they had introduced him to, Ijima thought they were meddling too much and making their opponent stronger. Waya didn't care about these comments, believing that strong players only get stronger, and noted that he too had improved by being with Hikaru. Ijima, however, walked away angrily, but these two were looking forward to facing Hikaru, believing that strengthening an opponent was not a mistake. If one couldn't defeat strong opponents, they shouldn't aspire to be a professional. The afternoon assessment began, and Ijima grew more agitated, even accidentally misplacing a stone during the game. Ultimately, he lost to Hikaru. Hikaru, however, did not gloat over his victory. It was just the first of 28 matches, and Fujiwara no Sai was pleased with Hikaru's stable mindset, which is essential for a professional player. Hikaru went on to win his next 3 games, as did Isumi and Isumi. Isumi aimed for a clean sweep in the tournament. As the matches progressed, 6 players maintained winning streaks. The examiners noted that starting with a winning streak might not be beneficial, as losing just 1 game later could shatter a player's confidence. Isumi, however, was eager to maintain his perfect record. Hearing about Hikaru's calm demeanor, Isumi became curious about his status. Isumi, a young master, had a grandfather who loved Go and often invited professional players home for guidance. To Asumi's surprise, he learned Go by watching them. To encourage his grandson, his grandfather started spending heavily on professional coaching and planned to invite Akira next week for private lessons, knowing Akira was the top player last year. Asumi looked forward to playing against him. Akira, who claimed he wouldn't pay attention to Hikaru, was secretly checking the professional exam results and was shocked to see Hikaru's 6 consecutive wins. Despite saying he didn't care, Akira was clearly interested in Hikaru's true strength. He received a call from Go Academy asking him to give Asumi a teaching game. Initially, Akira refused, but upon learning that Asumi was also a contestant in the professional exam, eager to gauge Hikaru's prowess, Akira agreed without hesitation. In the 7th match, Hikaru faced Bearded Man, who claimed he would end Hikaru's 6-game winning streak. Hikaru responded that if he won against Bearded Man, it would prove his wins were based on skill, not luck, and he accused Bearded Man of bluffing. Now immune to psychological tactics, Hikaru even joked about borrowing Bearded Man's motorcycle next time. Bearded Man was taken aback by Hikaru's confidence. Asumi couldn't help but pay attention to Hikaru. During the lunch break, Ijima complained about Bearded Man being too noisy, leading to a dispute. It was then revealed that Bearded Man had quit his job to prepare for the professional exam. Many contestants had made significant sacrifices to participate. Some came from afar, others stayed unemployed just for the exam, making Ijima, a local student from Tokyo, an object of envy. Meanwhile, as adults taking the exam 3 times a week, requesting leave from work each time would likely lead to dismissal. There are also prodigies among the players who entered university early. For them, life seems effortless, but they still have to give their all to win. The afternoon session of the exam continued. Fujiwara no Sai couldn't help observing everyone. Regardless of their background or talent, these people were all here because of their dedication to Go. In the following matches, Bearded Man also lost to Hikaru. After 8 rounds, only 4 players remained undefeated: Hikaru, Waya, Isumi, and Asumi. However, in the 9th round, Waya dropped out of the winning streak group. Asumi was calculating his upcoming matches against Isumi and Hikaru, with his final match being against Hikaru. But he was more excited about Akira's upcoming teaching game. Before heading to Asumi's house, Akira checked Asumi's current standings, but his mind was full of thoughts about Hikaru, as if he could hear Hikaru catching up behind him. He was curious about how Asumi would assess Hikaru's skills. Initially indifferent when meeting Akira, Asumi was struck by his serious demeanor. After playing a game with Asumi, Akira felt that Asumi was among the top student players, but still not at his level. He intended to use Asumi to gauge whether Hikaru could compete with him. After losing the game, Asumi retreated to the bathroom in distress, only to be dragged out by his grandfather. He gained a clear understanding of Akira's strength and considered him a formidable future rival if he turned professional. While discussing the game, Akira resolved to enhance Asumi's skills over the next month and a half, preparing him for his match against Hikaru. Akira then subtly probed for information about Hikaru from Asumi. Learning that Hikaru had lost to an outsider today, Akira became visibly anxious, which did not go unnoticed by Asumi. He remembered rumors from when Hikaru first enrolled at Go Academy, suggesting Akira saw him as a major rival. Since Hikaru had been in the second group, those rumors were dismissed, but now Akira's keen interest seemed suspicious. Asumi felt uneasy, stating that he didn't see Hikaru as a direct competitor. His rivals were Isumi and Waya, and Hikaru was a secondary concern. The last time Asumi played against Hikaru was 3 months ago. Akira asked if Asumi would accept his coaching, but Asumi, realizing Akira was using him to test Hikaru, angrily declined, asserting he could win without Akira's help. He didn't understand why Akira was so fixated on Hikaru and claimed he would one day be Akira's rival, leaving his grandfather embarrassed. In Asumi's view, Hikaru was indeed improving rapidly, a sentiment echoed by others who noted Hikaru's change. Asumi felt a subtle pressure from Hikaru. Meanwhile, Isumi was also under stress. Although still on a winning streak with Asumi, he was nearing the age limit for student players. He needed to step up his efforts soon, as the professional exam was open to individuals under 30, and both he and another competitor were desperately playing, also keenly aware of Hikaru's status. Actually, Hikaru lost the game that day not because he lacked skill, but because he had a stomachache and was in poor condition. However, he has now learned to adjust both his body and mind. Fujiwara no Sai encouraged Hikaru, saying he had a great chance of winning. Surprisingly, Hikaru didn't take it in and reminded Fujiwara no Sai that being distracted could lead to a loss. Fujiwara no Sai claimed Hikaru was getting too cocky, saying he had never lost to him, and vowed to beat Hikaru thoroughly today. Thus, they ended up arguing upstairs again. The 12th match began, with Hikaru facing Isumi today, a match Asumi also cared greatly about. Both Hikaru and Isumi were tense. If Hikaru lost to Isumi today, he would have 2 losses. Hikaru wanted to maintain only 1 loss and had never played against Isumi before. Knowing he would face more familiar opponents later, Hikaru hoped to win against Isumi today to keep his spirits up and continue winning. He drew a red circle on his palm as if taking a calming pill. As everyone took their seats and the referee announced the start of the match, Ijima and others didn't need to remind Isumi that Hikaru had grown stronger. Still, Isumi believed he was better. The 2 referees at the back discussed their match, acknowledging Isumi's strength. He had always been the top student player. However, being first didn't guarantee a win. Last year, Isumi got stuck and hadn't been able to overcome that barrier. Some players, like Mashiba, who turned professional last year, managed to leap over such barriers due to their good state of mind, a crucial factor in the exam. When the lunch break arrived, Fujiwara no Sai reassured Hikaru that the game had just started. As Hikaru left his seat, Ochi couldn't resist glancing at the board and noticed Isumi, playing black, currently had the advantage but had used half his time. During lunch, Isumi had little appetite as the game moved into the middle stage, and the atmosphere at the venue grew more tense. Waya stepped outside for air and found Hikaru stretching. Fujiwara no Sai encouraged Hikaru to keep going, but Hikaru felt he couldn't hold on. Waya thought Hikaru was intimidated by Isumi's skill and didn't want to disturb him, deciding to focus on finishing today's match first. He then started stretching behind Hikaru. Meanwhile, Ochi approached Isumi to discuss the fact that he had used half his time, suggesting they were overestimating Hikaru. He also mentioned that Akira was closely watching Hikaru, making Isumi even more nervous. Isumi remembered Hikaru's earlier claim about having rivals, initially thought to be a bluff. Yet at the Young Lions competition, both Ogata and Akira watched Hikaru play. Now with Ochi saying Akira was secretly monitoring Hikaru, Isumi suspected Akira truly considered Hikaru a serious rival. The last time Isumi saw Hikaru play against Hong Su-yan, they initially thought Hikaru made a mistake, but it turned out to be strategic planning. If he had to play against the Hikaru from that time, Isumi wasn't sure he could win. He suspected Akira saw potential in Hikaru's rapid progress. Perhaps Akira was chasing the Hikaru of the future. In the afternoon, Isumi's condition was poor as he returned to the game. Fujiwara no Sai immediately noticed something was off. It seemed Isumi was intimidated by Hikaru. As time passed, more people left the exam venue. Ochi, having finished his game, came over to watch Hikaru and Isumi play. He noticed that both players were short on time, with Isumi currently having the upper hand. They had to play speed chess. Ochi then left to check on Waya's game. Isumi, feeling a glimmer of hope for victory, thought Hikaru's chances of turning the game around were slim as long as he maintained his current performance and ignored the pressure Hikaru might feel. However, the more he thought about it, the more nervous he became, leading to a misplaced stone. His fingers had already left the piece, but then he changed the stone's position, which is against the rules. Both Hikaru and Fujiwara no Sai sensed something was amiss, and Isumi's forehead instantly broke into a cold sweat. Fujiwara no Sai admitted he hadn't seen clearly, and from Hikaru's angle, it wasn't clear either, but such action was undoubtedly a violation of the rules. However, Isumi said nothing, and Hikaru was unsure if Isumi had indeed made a move. Wanting to maintain only one loss, Hikaru considered asking if Isumi had broken the rules, which would end the match. Fujiwara no Sai questioned if Hikaru didn't want to finish the game, as he still had a chance to win. But Hikaru felt he was likely to lose, and wanted this victory. Knowing how hard Isumi had worked to become a professional, this win was crucial for him. Isumi's silence suggested he valued this victory as much as Hikaru did. Just as Hikaru was about to speak up, Isumi conceded defeat, confirming that his finger had indeed left the piece. Hikaru verbally shrugged off the easy win but felt terrible about it. Ochi, witnessing Hikaru's endgame, couldn't understand how he turned the game around under such circumstances. Hikaru left the venue a winner, but felt a lingering guilt inside. Isumi's performance continued to decline in subsequent games, and even Waya noticed something was off, hoping Isumi would recover. All the players present were formidable. However, Isumi still lost to Waya, and Hikaru was also in bad shape. Although he had gained an easy win from Isumi, the memory of that game lingered negatively, affecting his current match against Fukui. Fujiwara no Sai was particularly worried about this, as the previous game had left Hikaru with a bad memory. Today, Hikaru was clearly struggling and ended up losing by 9.5 points. Hikaru vented his frustration, reflecting on how he had the chance to turn the game around the day before, but clung to a slim chance when victory emerged. He now realized that his continuous fixation on that chance was due to his own timidity. Seeing Hikaru come to this realization, Fujiwara no Sai offered to take on Isumi's role and continue the previous day's game with Hikaru, helping him overcome his mental block. Hikaru declared that to avoid relying on luck for victories in the future, he needed to become much stronger. Fujiwara no Sai nodded in agreement, affirming that such determination was correct. Meanwhile, Ochi was again trying to influence people's mindsets, bluntly saying that Isumi must be scared of Hikaru. Isumi, feeling down, didn't respond to anyone's questions. Although Waya didn't know how Isumi lost, he hoped Isumi would soon forget that match and regain his focus for the exam. Ochi believed it was definitely a blunder since Isumi had the upper hand, and Hikaru couldn't possibly turn the game around. Therefore, Ochi thought Isumi was mentally unstable, and after Hikaru's suspected win, Isumi's pride led him to lose to Fukui. Ochi felt neither was a threat and focused only on defeating Waya. Hikaru arrived at the venue and saw Isumi in low spirits, hoping he would recover soon as the exam was more important. He couldn't afford to focus on others. After the exam, Hikaru won his match, and Ochi also won, meaning Waya lost. The atmosphere in the venue was exceptionally somber, as during the professional exam they were not friends but competitors. To make matters worse, Isumi lost today to Fukui, whom he could usually beat easily. At the same time, Ochi heard from his grandfather that Akira had entered the preliminaries for the Meijin and Honinbo title matches, and had been on a winning streak. His grandfather thought Ochi could learn from Akira, but Ochi felt Akira was too preoccupied with Hikaru and didn't need guidance. Today, he even defeated Waya, and was confident he would pass with a perfect record. He had thought Isumi was his biggest rival, but after learning Isumi lost to Hikaru, he underestimated him. However, the next day, Ochi saw that Isumi had regained his form. Isumi admitted Ochi had some skill, but he didn't think he would lose to him. Seeing Isumi back to normal, Ochi went from initial surprise to satisfaction, as a proper showdown was now possible. However, when they clashed, Ochi suddenly realized Isumi seemed stronger. He didn't understand his opening move, but soon Isumi cleverly dominated the game. Panicked by this outcome, Ochi lost his composure. Although Isumi was still thinking about Hikaru's game, he knew he just needed to regain his confidence, as his skills and intellect would not betray him. As they battled, Hikaru, having finished his game, came to watch. Soon, more players gathered around. Ochi struggled more and eventually conceded, albeit reluctantly. Isumi was actually grateful to Ochi. Without his constant provocations, he wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Now ready to face his opponents squarely, Isumi was still unsure if he was stronger than Hikaru, but he knew he was growing and needed more self-confidence. Meanwhile, Ochi was hiding in the bathroom, shedding tears and analyzing his loss, vowing never to lose again. When he emerged and encountered Isumi, Isumi only said one thing to him: "You'll see how strong Hikaru is when you play him next." Currently, Ochi's record stands at 14 wins and 1 loss, while Isumi is at 12 wins and 3 losses. Hikaru and Waya are both around 13 wins and 2 losses after 12 matches. The competition among professional players is indeed fierce. Hikaru's final round match will be against Ochi. Before leaving, Hikaru tells Ochi that he will become stronger before their match. Although Ochi lost to Isumi, he managed to stabilize his mindset. He didn't lose the next day's game. At the rest area, he encountered Hikaru and noticed that Hikaru had matured significantly, with a much calmer demeanor. Ochi became increasingly concerned about Hikaru's progress and started secretly checking his scores. He found out that Hikaru lost to another senior student, Honda. Ochi felt relieved, until he realized that despite winning, Honda appeared very rattled, admitting that he only won by half a point at the end. Initially, Honda had a huge advantage, but Hikaru fought back bit by bit, almost breaking Honda's resistance. Honda felt lucky to win by just half a point and didn't feel victorious. Instead, he felt a sense of dread from being pushed to his limits. Meanwhile, Hikaru was still having nightmares about losing by half a point. Fujiwara no Sai was somewhat worried about him, but Hikaru was becoming increasingly composed. Win or lose, every game now contributed to Hikaru's experience. Ochi, however, started to fear Hikaru and decided to call Akira for coaching. Over the next 3 weeks, Akira rigorously coached Ochi, not mincing words. He immediately started by setting up Shusaku's Kifu, claiming it was specifically tailored against Hikaru. Ochi even gathered information about Hikaru's game against the Korean student Hongsu Yan from Aquaman Junior High School's coach. After reviewing Akira's analysis, Ochi was in disbelief at how brilliantly Hikaru played. This made him realize why Isumi was so cautious around Hikaru. If Hikaru was that strong, Ochi's 3 weeks of extra lessons might not be enough to prepare for him. Akira reassured him, saying his presence was equivalent to saying he knew Hikaru best. A rivalry is a rivalry, after all, and rivals can't become spouses. Scratched out. In the professional exams round-robin format, losing 6 to 7 games generally meant hanging by a thread. The exam has now reached its 20th match, and more players are being eliminated. Hikaru's record is at 17 wins and 3 losses, the same as Honda and Isumi. Bearded Man was eliminated in the 21st round. Players outside are realizing that the top 5 are tough to beat. Last year, Akira stood out alone, leaving only 2 slots for everyone else. It's uncertain if there will be more outstanding players next year. Before leaving, Bearded Man met with Hikaru. He said he wanted to take a chance before his time as a professional player ran out, but unfortunately, his age was a limiting factor. Since he was leaving, he decided to take Hikaru for a ride on his motorcycle, fulfilling their connection made during the professional exam. Bearded Man drove fast, and Hikaru could hardly hear what he was saying. Bearded Man acknowledged that Hikaru had improved a lot, while he hadn't progressed in the exam. He understood where he fell short, and hoped Hikaru would continue to succeed on the professional path. He promised to cheer for Hikaru in the future. Meanwhile, Akira was strictly coaching Ochi. Initially nervous, Ochi soon began to question why Akira was so obsessed with Hikaru, even believing that Hikaru's match against Hongsu Yan was just a stroke of luck, and that Hikaru could occasionally play a brilliant game. Ochi thought Akira was crazy, so Akira set up a game for Ochi. It was a game played by Fujiwara no Sai 2 years ago, posing as someone else. Ochi felt the style was ancient, yet incredibly strong. When he realized he was reviewing a game played by Hikaru, he couldn't believe it. He had seen Hikaru's games when he first joined the Go Academy. Moreover, Akira mentioned this was Hikaru's strength 2 years ago, and he had forced Akira to resign mid-game. Ochi was shocked, doubting if this could really be Hikaru's capability. But Akira confirmed the game was real, which made Ochi question who Hikaru really was. Akira also wanted to get to the bottom of this, so he intensified his coaching of Ochi. At this point, Hikaru had achieved a record of 19 wins and 3 losses, while Waya was at 20 wins and 2 losses. Today, Isumi and Honda faced off, with Honda exploiting a gap in Isumi's defense to turn the game around. Both ended up with a record of 18 wins and 4 losses. With 5 games remaining, Honda was pleased as he still had a chance. If players tied for 3rd place, they might play a deciding match to enter the final rounds. Hikaru was likely to advance, while Isumi probably lost his chance. With only 5 games left until the finals, Ochi had stabilized his condition. Even if he lost 2 of the upcoming games after winning today, he was almost guaranteed to qualify. However, under Akira's influence, Ochi was determined to defeat Hikaru. Tomorrow, Waya and Hikaru would face off. Ochi now just wanted to understand Hikaru's strength, a comment overheard by Waya. Waya then went online to play Go, planning to play just 1 game before sleeping. He noticed Sai was listed, who hadn't been online since the end of summer vacation. Excited, he clicked to watch, only to discover this Sai was a fraud, playing terribly. Waya remembered Hikaru's slip of the tongue. He had once suspected Hikaru was Sai's disciple, but right now, the upcoming match was more important, and both were looking forward to facing each other. Fujiwara no Sai was increasingly pleased with Hikaru, his protege. Previously intimidated by his attacks on the board, Hikaru had grown significantly. Fujiwara no Sai noted that Hikaru's playing style was becoming more like his own. Hikaru said that he always played Go with Fujiwara no Sai, and whenever he was unsure about his moves, he would channel Fujiwara no Sai's thoughts, often leading to impressive games. They had always played Go together, and Hikaru could now be considered the person who understood Fujiwara no Sai the best. Remembering the past 2 years, Fujiwara no Sai couldn't help but smile, although he also began to ponder one issue. Fujiwara no Sai had always believed he would play Go with Hikaru forever, until Hikaru's death, at which point he would return to slumber on some Go board, waiting to be reawakened. But upon reflection, he wondered if such eternal life could truly continue forever, as no one can guarantee the future. Take care, and think again. Fujiwara no Sai cautioned himself to stay grounded and not jinx things. Meanwhile, Hikaru, talking about tomorrow's game, was actually very nervous inside. Fujiwara no Sai nodded, putting aside his own concerns. The next day, Hikaru arrived at the Go Academy and noticed a different proctor overseeing the exams. The previous proctor seemed to have been temporarily replaced due to some matters. The new proctor felt Hikaru looked familiar, but couldn't recall where he had seen him. It was only as the proctor was about to leave that he remembered. This was the referee from a children's Go tournament, where a comment made by Fujiwara no Sai and Hikaru had invalidated a game. However, the proctor didn't scold Hikaru. Instead, he remarked that he had felt Hikaru played well back then. He was impressed that Hikaru was now close to becoming a professional player, not surprised that Hikaru could see through the game so easily back then. Fujiwara no Sai, though slightly annoyed since he was the one who had seen through the game, acknowledged that Hikaru now truly had the ability to do so himself. After cheering Hikaru on, Fujiwara no Sai left. Hikaru reflected on the words of the coach from Aquaman Junior High School. Now, those who remembered Fujiwara no Sai were acknowledging Hikaru's own skills upon seeing him again, which made Fujiwara no Sai feel increasingly uneasy, sensing that some change was imminent. However, there was no time to dwell on these thoughts, as Hikaru was about to play against Waya. Fujiwara no Sai set aside his worries, focusing on supporting Hikaru. Waya had been studying Go under his teacher for 5 years and had participated in the professional exams for the last 4 years, with this year being his best showing yet. His teacher, along with his children, had high hopes for Waya and encouraged him. During training sessions, the teacher reminded Waya to step out of the shadow of being a disciple, so today, he was determined to win, hoping to set a trap for Hikaru in the game. As Hikaru made a move, Waya thought that capturing that stone would nearly secure his victory, unless Hikaru could miraculously save what seemed like a dead group. The teacher had high expectations for Waya, confident he could pass the professional exam. After Waya's play, the teacher carefully reviewed the board and was almost certain that Hikaru's black stones had no way out. However, Fujiwara no Sai, watching from the sidelines, knew there was one last lifeline for Hikaru's black stones in this challenging game. He remained silent, knowing he should not and could not speak, as it would be unfair to Waya. It was up to Hikaru to find it. As Hikaru pondered his next move, nearby, Honda lost a crucial game, meaning he could no longer qualify for the finals. Tearful, Honda left the exam venue and couldn't help crying at the bus stop. The bus driver, familiar with this route for many years, noticed the tears on the ground but chose not to rush Honda. Even after Honda expressed a desire to walk home, the driver comforted him, saying life is long and there's always next year to try again. Overwhelmed, Honda burst into tears. Currently, there are 2 spots left. The decision will be made among Hikaru, Waya, and Isumi. If Waya wins today's match, his position as a professional Go player is secured. The last spot will be contested between Hikaru and Isumi. Waya thought there was no way for the Black Stones to live on the board, but Hikaru, channeling Fujiwara no Sai's thinking and considering Waya's style, found a next move. Waya had anticipated this move, but dismissed it as a desperate struggle until a white stone was captured. Surprised, Waya wondered, "Can you really play like that?" As the game progressed, Waya became more alarmed, realizing what he thought was a dying struggle actually revitalized the game. Fujiwara no Sai smiled, seeing that Hikaru had indeed found the path to survival. If Hikaru kept his composure, he could win the game. Waya, sweating more as he played, realized his position was compromised and he might disappoint his teacher. Unable to continue, he conceded defeat. Fujiwara no Sai understood that this game symbolized Hikaru's complete surpassing of Waya. Suddenly, Waya mentioned encountering Sai online, having once said that Hikaru would one day be as strong as Sai. Today, he realized that Hikaru's play was as brilliant as Sai's. As Waya had observed, Fujiwara no Sai also felt that Hikaru was becoming increasingly proficient. Hikaru's next opponent is Ochi. That evening, Ochi met with Akira, aware that Akira was only interested in Hikaru's results. Frustrated, especially since he was the top qualifier, Ochi found even his grandfather questioning whether Akira truly believed in his abilities. However, Akira insisted on respecting all opponents. Impatient, Ochi asked Akira if defeating Hikaru would make him view Ochi as a rival, and expressed his hope to join Koyo's Go Study group if he won. Akira did not refuse. Thus, Ochi was even more determined to defeat Hikaru. Asumi thought that if Ochi won, he might go easy on Hikaru, helping him pass. But Iijima, knowing Ochi's nature, also held a high opinion of Hikaru's capabilities. The organizers were considering that if Hikaru, Isumi, and Ochi all lost today, a playoff among them might follow. Asumi wanted to encourage Hikaru, but felt he already understood the importance of today's match, and held back. At the Go Academy's entrance, Hikaru met Ochi and learned that he had been studying Go with Akira lately. Hikaru was curious why Akira would play with Ochi, concerned about what Akira might have told him. Ochi had already heard about Hikaru's skill from 2 years ago through Akira, who had a special interest in Hikaru. However, he told Hikaru that Akira had said nothing. Ochi also said that Akira never mentioned Hikaru, telling Hikaru not to be conceited. He added that since becoming a professional player, Akira has remained undefeated, winning continuously since April. Ochi argued that someone like Akira wouldn't care about Hikaru. However, he contradicted himself, revealing that Akira was anxiously inquiring about Hikaru's results. Ochi commented on the stubbornness of Go players when it comes to boasting. Furthermore, Ochi claimed that Akira greatly admired him and that defeating Hikaru would make Akira consider him a formidable opponent. But Hikaru sensed something was off. Why did it have to be him that Ochi needed to beat? Ochi claimed it was because of his outstanding performance, but Hikaru detected the lie. Hikaru retorted, asking if that meant Akira would consider him a rival if he won against Ochi. It seemed to Hikaru that Ochi was caught in their strange rivalry. Unable to argue back, Ochi ended up brooding by the window. If Hikaru loses to Ochi today, he's likely to face Waya in the elimination rounds. Given that Waya's opponent, nicknamed the Nemesis, is tough, Isumi's opponent today is weak, and it's highly unlikely for Isumi to lose. If Isumi were to lose, both Hikaru and Waya would automatically qualify as professional players. The outcome for the three of them hinges on today's matches, but the future for the other players who don't qualify is still uncertain. As Hikaru and Ochi took their seats, Hikaru knew that winning against Ochi would put him on the same starting line as Akira. Ochi, believing he had Akira's backing, was confident he couldn't lose to Hikaru. Little did he know, Hikaru had the support of Fujiwara no Sai, a centuries-old Go master. After today's match, the 3-month-long tournament from preliminaries to finals would finally conclude. Regardless of whether they become professional players or are eliminated, the proctor hoped they would continue their journey with a passion for Go. Rather than saying Hikaru is just playing against Ochi, it would be more accurate to say he is chasing after Akira, much like Akira chased after Fujiwara no Sai. Previously, Hikaru was too intimidated to play against Akira, but now, a win today would allow him to officially challenge Akira. Fujiwara no Sai found Ochi's moves interesting, viewing this as a test set by Akira for Hikaru. He noted that the game was evenly matched so far, although Ochi might have a slight edge. Hikaru was playing well, but suddenly, he made a questionable move. Fujiwara no Sai frowned, recognizing the risk in the position. Ochi quickly seized the opportunity to counterattack. Seeing Hikaru's distressed expression, Ochi smiled. Outside, rain was about to fall, and the referee called for a mid-game break. During this time, the atmosphere in the venue was tense. After lunch, everyone resumed playing chess. Hikaru fell into deep thought, knowing that one wrong move could severely worsen his situation. But he refused to give up easily and made another move on the board. Ochi initially thought this was a rash move by Hikaru, but as he was about to counterattack, he realized it might not be that simple, and also began to ponder. Both players recalled the course of the game in their minds. Soon, Ochi discerned Hikaru's intent and precisely placed his stone. Fujiwara no Sai recognized that this was the special training Akira had given to Ochi. Ochi never underestimated Hikaru, believing if Hikaru could think 100 moves ahead, he could think further. Hikaru calmed himself down, not wanting to miss any opportunity, while Ochi aimed to crush Hikaru here. As soon as Ochi made his move, Hikaru seized the chance and began his counterattack. Hikaru and Ochi engaged in a back-and-forth assault. Unbeknownst to Ochi, he had left a slight vulnerability. As the game progressed, he suddenly realized that Hikaru had revived his position, transforming his disadvantage into an indistinguishable outcome. Fujiwara no Sai was moved, acknowledging this as Hikaru's true strength. Fujiwara no Sai knew Akira was originally chasing him, hence his confusion over Hikaru's abilities. Fujiwara no Sai realized that it was he whom Akira was seeking, but it would ultimately be Hikaru, not him, who would face and answer Akira. Akira had just finished a teaching game when he ran into Amano, a journalist from a publishing house. Amano interviewed Akira about his feelings on maintaining a 20-game winning streak, a rare achievement among professional Go players. However, Akira was preoccupied with Hikaru's results and hardly paid attention to Amano. He was eager to review the game at Ochi's house. Hearing Amano was about to inquire about professional players' results, the distracted Akira suddenly stood up and asked Amano to inform him of the outcomes, despite claiming he didn't care about Hikaru. By then, Isumi had finished his match and was waiting outside for the results of Hikaru and Waya. If neither lost today, he would miss his chance to become a professional player. Waya had already won against Fukui, securing the second qualifying spot. Isumi knew only winners could become professionals. If Hikaru lost, he would face him in the eliminations. As the match between Hikaru and Ochi concluded, Isumi awaited the messenger. The anxious expression on the messenger's face told Isumi the outcome. Hikaru had won against Ochi, and he had lost his last chance. As heavy rain poured outside, a disheartened Isumi returned home. Ochi, having lost the match, was also despondent. His grandfather, not understanding, thought they could just play another match since they were all professionals. Akira showed up at Ochi's door, but Ochi, not wanting Akira to see his losing game, sent him away. Akira left, frustrated and helpless. Ochi lost to Hikaru by 1.5 points. What bothered him most was the referee's comment that Hikaru's winning stones represented his growth and perseverance. Although Ochi was also praised for his skill, he remained dissatisfied. Akira realized that Hikaru had caught up with him. She was curious about who Hikaru really was and decided to see Hikaru's strength with her own eyes, wondering how far he could go in the world of professional Go players. Although Hikaru had passed the professional exam, his mother was quite worried about him. They did not fully understand what being a professional Go player entailed. They knew that passing the exam meant Hikaru could earn money independently, but his mother was still concerned about his education and social life. She mentioned that there was still a year until his middle school exams, but she worried Hikaru might not attend high school. Therefore, she wanted to meet Waya's parents to understand what being a professional Go player really means. At school, Hikaru ran into Mitani, who learned that Hikaru had become a professional Go player. Surprisingly, Mitani complimented him without any sarcasm. The school's Go club was still active, and everyone was happy that Hikaru had passed the exam. They even discussed collecting money to buy him a gift and mentioned including Mitani in the next middle school Go competition. The Go club was lively, but Hikaru, watching from outside the window, felt out of place. He turned away, knowing he could no longer participate in these competitions, but he could now face Akira officially, though not until next April. Meanwhile, Waya told Hikaru that Isumi had left the research group and withdrawn from the institute. Normally, students graduate in March of the following year, but Waya had been unable to contact Isumi and only found out about his departure from school. The teacher thought this might be better for Isumi, allowing him to calmly assess his situation. The teacher believed Isumi would return to take the exam next year and told Waya that Isumi would reflect on his issues. Now a professional player, Waya also had to consider his own future. Besides bringing news about Isumi, Waya came to teach Hikaru how to record Go games. Hikaru knew the basics of game recording, but professional game recording was different. It required documenting each move's timing and position, and even included countdown tasks. Hikaru found it bothersome, his mind occupied with playing against Akira and curious about facing Koyo. Waya remarked that Hikaru was not yet at that level and would need a string of wins to stand a chance. Professional players below 4 Dan usually only make it to the second round of eliminations. However, now that they were professional players, they were in the same world. Hikaru was excited about the possibility of playing against them one day. Fujiwara no Sai paused, realizing it was Hikaru himself, not him, who had earned this opportunity to reach the world of Koyo and Akira through relentless effort. He worried, wondering if Hikaru still planned to let him play. "Don't think like that, Fujiwara no Sai," he thought to himself. "You must speak up about your concerns, or Hikaru will never notice." On the other side, Koyo encountered another professional Go player who holds the King's Throne title. This title holder also subtly taunted Koyo in the elevator, pointing out that although Koyo had defended his celebrity title for the 6th time, he had missed the opportunity to challenge for the Chess Saint title. This time, however, he was there to challenge for the King's Throne title. He also mentioned that his son Akira's only defeat when he started his career was at the hands of this King's Throne player, which left Koyo with a slightly awkward expression. The King's Throne player even mocked Koyo, asking if he was there to seek revenge for his son. Koyo did not respond and just continued playing Go. Meanwhile, Kuwabara was paying attention to the results of other professional players, with a particular focus on Hikaru. For some reason, he sensed an extraordinary aura about Hikaru, which might be what Ogata referred to as the wave of the future. Fujiwara no Sai felt conflicted, believing that other professional players were waiting for Hikaru, not him. He wondered about his own relevance. The next day, Hikaru went to the Go club where Kawai was especially happy, as Hikaru was showing promise. Everyone encouraged Hikaru to aim for multiple titles, mentioning that Koyo was close to claiming his 5th title. It was also rumored that Koyo was aiming for the Tengen title. Hikaru appeared confused, prompting everyone to educate him about the titles held by professional Go players, and they even gave him a stack of newspapers. That evening, Hikaru and Fujiwara no Sai read the newspapers together. Hikaru was curious about the latest changes in the Go world, while Fujiwara no Sai was captivated by a game record of Koyo's. Since Fujiwara no Sai does not have a physical form, he asked Hikaru to turn the pages for him. Hikaru, preoccupied with the thought of the new Beginners League, continued to turn the pages. Akira had maintained a winning streak of 26 games. The Beginners League provided a chance for top players and ordinary players to compete. which Koyo usually did not participate in. However, this time, he unexpectedly chose to participate and even specifically requested to play against a newcomer named by Amano, a journalist. It turned out to be Hikaru, whom he had not seen in 2 years. Akira was taken aback, realizing both he and his father had been challenged by the same person. Recently, Fujiwara no Sai had been increasingly strict in coaching Hikaru, even becoming more serious in expression, which Hikaru found somewhat frightening. At that moment, a phone call came in, discussing the arrangement for Koyo's match against him. Fujiwara no Sai, overhearing this, widened his eyes and earnestly requested Hikaru to let him play that game. However, Hikaru declined because the match would attract a crowd including Akira, Waya, and others, as well as coverage by the Go Weekly. Moreover, in the Beginners League, seniors would give newcomers a 5-stone handicap, which would be a significant advantage for Fujiwara no Sai. Hikaru was aware of Fujiwara no Sai's strength and did not want to remain overshadowed by him. Yet, Fujiwara no Sai was impatient to play himself and asked Hikaru when he would be allowed to play. Hikaru doesn't understand why Fujiwara no Sai is in such a hurry. He thought they had infinite time, and even if he died, Fujiwara no Sai could just find someone else to possess. Calming down, Fujiwara no Sai scratches his head, agreeing that's true. Hikaru believes that if Fujiwara no Sai could possess 2 people, he could possess a third. Fujiwara no Sai admits that he's been restless lately, unsure of how long he can remain in this world. Hikaru thinks he's being overly anxious and expresses his desire not to be overshadowed by Fujiwara no Sai anymore. He suggests Fujiwara no Sai find a third person to possess before playing again. Hikaru's words, though harsh, deeply unsettle Fujiwara no Sai. Meanwhile, Kuwabara meets Ogata, and they both watch the new Beginners League, curious about Hikaru's potential to become a trendsetter in the Go community. The presence of these experts surprises other spectators like Waya and Ochi. Ochi never expected Hikaru to attract such prominent attention. Seeing Akira arrive, and learning that Akira's father, Koyo, is also interested in Hikaru, Ochi grows curious about Hikaru's situation. Outside, Koyo and Hikaru are taking a photo together. Before entering, Koyo suddenly tells Hikaru that Akira and Ogata, among others, have come to watch today's game, which he specifically arranged against Hikaru. Their match is set in the same room Hikaru visited last year, but this year he enters as a participant. Unexpectedly, Hikaru finds Fujiwara no Sai already seated at the Go board, leaving him unsure of what to do. Simultaneously, Kuwabara and Ogata start betting on who will win the match with a 5.5 komi handicap. Kuwabara bets on Hikaru's victory and asks Ogata if he also favors Hikaru. Being Koyo's disciple, Ogata naturally supports Koyo. Waya and Ochi are stunned, while Akira is curious about the kind of game Hikaru will play. The referee urges Hikaru to sit down, but Fujiwara no Sai is already in the seat, eager to face today's strong players. However, without a physical form, only Hikaru is visible to Koyo. Dejected, Fujiwara no Sai steps aside. Seeing his mentor's disheartened figure, Hikaru feels sympathy. Koyo offers him a 5-stone advantage, which would be too favorable for Fujiwara no Sai, a beginner defeating a top player. However, Hikaru considers intentionally falling behind by 15 stones during the game, allowing Fujiwara no Sai to continue with his level of play, making it less exaggerated. Fujiwara no Sai asks Hikaru to proceed this way, embracing the disadvantage. Hikaru agrees to Fujiwara no Sai's request. 20 minutes into the game, Hikaru hasn't made a move yet, piquing Kuwabara and Ogata's curiosity about his thoughts. However, it's actually Fujiwara no Sai who is contemplating. Giving up 15 points to Koyo is not easy, as they could normally fight evenly until the end. This game stakes everything, making the first move crucial. Finally, Fujiwara no Sai decides on the first position. The first move took 20 minutes, creating an undercurrent among the reporters, making the room's atmosphere almost suffocating. Such a situation was rare. Reporter Amano had planned to ask Akira about his views on the game, but upon opening the door, he found Kuwabara and Ogata backstage. Kuwabara expressed a significant interest in Hikaru, admitting that he felt a sense of crisis when passing by him. He trusts his instincts deeply. From the reporters, Ochi learned that it was Koyo who initiated this match against Hikaru. Both he and his companion fell silent. Ogata thought Koyo's interest in Hikaru was because Akira had been challenging him, but Kuwabara believed Koyo, like himself, was moved by intuition. At that moment, Fujiwara no Sai suddenly directed Hikaru to begin attacking. The onlookers backstage were surprised by the early offensive. Fujiwara no Sai knew they had to give away points later. If they didn't start attacking early, they were bound to lose. His move was strategic, meant to trap Koyo. When Koyo stepped into the trap, it would be time for his black pieces to turn the game around. However, as a top player, Koyo did not easily fall into the setup. Even though his opponent was the newcomer Hikaru, he remained cautious. As the game proceeded, the outcome seemed left to fate. Fujiwara no Sai is not one to sit idly by. His bold and seemingly reckless tactics appeared foolhardy to the spectators. Amano thought Hikaru was not yet at Akira's level, despite a very favorable position for an attack appearing in the game. Akira noticed his father hadn't fallen into the setup. Amano believed Koyo was merely sparing Hikaru the embarrassment of a quick defeat, but Kuwabara knew Koyo's intuition was strong, and that he had reasons for his caution. Indeed, Koyo sensed the game held deeper complexities and chose not to engage hastily. He always felt another presence behind Hikaru, as if the game, chaotic on the surface, had unfathomable depths. Despite facing a 14-year-old novice, the atmosphere was intensely heavy, and he even felt some pressure. To outsiders, Hikaru's black pieces seemed to be aggressively instigating conflict, but Koyo's white pieces did not take the bait. Akira became increasingly concerned about Hikaru's approach. Everyone felt Hikaru was being too impulsive, and he soon conceded defeat, judged not to be at Akira's level. They did not understand why Hikaru chose to play that way. Ogata reserved his judgment, while Kuwabara found the game rather interesting. This prompted Akira to stay and ask Kuwabara for more details. Kuwabara explained that if one considered that Hikaru was intentionally giving away points, the game made sense. Akira was stunned. Hikaru was letting the top player win. Helplessly, Fujiwara no Sai acknowledged that winning while giving points to a top player like Koyo was not easy. Unexpectedly, Koyo then spoke up, stating he did not want to play with handicaps against Hikaru, although he was unsure why Hikaru chose this approach. His moves were not yet subtle enough to hide from him. Hikaru was surprised that Koyo had seen through Fujiwara no Sai's strength and even invited him to play without handicaps next time, mentioning the impressive spirit he felt during their match. Fujiwara no Sai seriously accepted his invitation. Meanwhile, Akira also talked about his matches with Hikaru, recalling the terrifying strength he felt the first time they played, a level that matched his father's. However, 6 months later, Hikaru played a terrible game, which angered him at the time. Later, Hikaru explained he was chasing an illusion and vowed to catch up with Akira someday. Since then, Hikaru became a formal student and had already faced his father this year. Kuwabara remarked that it was Akira who brought Hikaru into the Go world, and he even remembered Akira's name. From another reporter, Akira learned that his father had arranged to alternate starting moves with Hikaru in their next game, which surprised him even more. Hikaru felt that Koyo had not fully seen through Fujiwara no Sai's strength, but recognized that they were not playing recklessly, but trying to give away points, which showed Koyo's strong capabilities. He wished to fulfill Fujiwara no Sai's desire to play against Koyo, but was unsure if he could make it happen. Today's game was also significant for Hikaru, yet he let Fujiwara no Sai take the lead. Both felt a sense of indebtedness to each other. Hikaru thought Shusaku had treated Fujiwara no Sai better because Shusaku let Fujiwara no Sai play all his games. However, he couldn't understand why Shusaku didn't want to play himself. Fujiwara no Sai explained it wasn't like that. He had forced Shusaku to play on his behalf. Shusaku's early death wasn't due to possession. He was a good man who cared for patients during an epidemic, eventually succumbing to the disease himself. On the other hand, Akira also got his father's answer that Hikaru was indeed trying to give points in their game, increasing his curiosity about Hikaru's situation. Fujiwara no Sai and Hikaru had some disagreements because of that game. Fujiwara no Sai didn't understand why he had possessed Hikaru, though he enjoyed guiding such a talented player in Go. However, he also wanted to play himself. He had been looking forward to a match against Koyo, seeing it as a chance to be close to the divine move, But his identity prevented him from playing openly and pursuing higher realms of skill alongside Koyo. Fujiwara no Sai felt that without experiencing the divine move, his existence would be meaningless, unsure of how much longer he would have to wait. 1,000 years ago, Fujiwara no Sai was a top Go player in the imperial court. One day, he faced another of the emperor's teachers in a match where the winner would become the emperor's Go tutor. Despite his mastery of Go, Fujiwara no Sai lacked skills in scheming and politics. His opponent cheated, swallowing up Sai's pieces and falsely accusing him of cheating. This accusation disturbed Sai's mental state, leading to his loss and the stigma of being a cheater. Ultimately, wronged and disgraced, he drowned himself, his spirit attaching to a Go board. A millennium later, he met a boy named Kotaro, through whose body and assistance he re-entered the world of Go. Later, Kotaro changed his name to Shusaku and inherited the title of Honinbo, believing he could eventually grasp the divine move. But Shusaku died of illness. Then came Hikaru. Fujiwara no Sai thought his time with Hikaru would be like with Kotaro, but unexpectedly, he led Hikaru into the world of Go. Reflecting on the journey they had taken, he felt both comforted and emotional. However, as Hikaru grew, Fujiwara no Sai's chances to play decreased. He began to wonder why, if he could not continue playing, the gods had awakened him in Hikaru's presence. Yet the gods did not answer his queries. Confused but resolute, Fujiwara no Sai decided to understand the divine move as soon as possible, determined not to leave any regrets before he vanished.